We've got an absolutely jam-packed episode of Carving Up Live on tap for you guys tonight. Going to start with Rory McIlroy going back-to-back at Augusta, winning a second straight Masters in his career. Why he's in a prime position to be chasing down the all-time greats in the history of golf. Also get to the NBA having a weird week and a half or so as it relates to tanking, a rough week for the NBA, how they can be able to solve those things in the offseason. Also preview some of the set playoff matches we got, in particular Lakers-Rockets, which I find really interesting. We got LeBron versus KD this late in their careers. Get to that. My All-NBA predictions, if I had a vote, if I had any sort of say in the ballot process on the first team, second team, third team All-NBA squads. Also get into MVP, Coach of the Year, how I would vote in all of those awards. Also, get to my predictions for the NBA play-in tournament. Who's going to make the playoffs? Whose season is over? Who's going to have to play another game on Friday? Get to all those things on a jam-packed edition of Carving Up Live. So as always, drop the beat, baby. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on Facebook, Twitch, X, and we don't do this all the time, but today, special show. We're live on Instagram, so appreciate everybody stopping by on IG as well, if I can talk today. Great weekend of sports. We don't talk a ton of golf on the show, but we're going to lead, obviously, with the Masters. Got a ton of NBA stuff to get into. Really a big NBA week as we build up towards the playoffs coming up, next weekend. You got play-in tournament predictions, which is coming up at the end of today's show. You got NBA playoff biggest weaknesses that I'll be doing later this week. You got top 10 players in the NBA that I'll be doing either on Wednesday, I should say on Thursday, because a little quick update. We're actually not doing a show Wednesday. We're doing it on Thursday because that's going to be after my Golden State Warriors play the Clippers, and I want to have kind of a post-game reaction the very next day after that. So there's a little bit of a programming update regarding that, but tons of NBA to get to on the show today. But let's start with the Masters. But first, again, we don't talk a ton of golf on the show, throughout the year, but it is the Masters. It is arguably the most entertaining and compelling sports tournament, at least in America, of the entire year. And Rory McIlroy, for 11 years, does not win a major championship and wins in dramatic fashion a year ago. I remember talking about on this show, like it looks like he had won about 5 times, looked like he lost about 4 times. He's able to come up, in a playoff at the end. And then yesterday clinches back-to-back Masters titles, which, by the way, has been done by very few individuals in the history of golf. Matter of fact, Rory is the 4th. If we have that graphic, here you go. Some of the greats to ever play the game. Jack Nicklaus did it in 65-66. Nick Faldo did it in 89-90. Of course, Tiger Woods in 01-02. Rory McIlroy did it yesterday, 25 and 20-26. And if you look at guys, we showed this graphic a year ago, but just sort of a reminder, career Grand Slam golfer. So this is, in the world of golf, this is PGA Championship, U.S. Open, British Open, Masters. So you've won all 4 of those, a Grand Slam championship. These are the 6 golfers that have done that. Put the list on the screen right there against some of the greats. Gene Sarazen, Ben Hogan, Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, Tiger Woods, and Rory McIlroy. And again, he won most of his titles, most of his major championships kind of in succession, but he just could not get over the hump at Augusta. And I think what you saw in the first couple of days of this tournament was so fascinating because, a lot of people think, is Scotty Scheffler's going to win this thing? Could Rory go back-to-back? Is that, it was a big story after, I guess it was Friday. Rory's got a 6-shot lead going into day 3 of the Masters, which I think is the biggest ever. I think Jack Nicklaus was second with a 5-shot lead. And it's like, oh my gosh, Rory's going to run away with this. I think so much of him winning this tournament, of him winning the Masters, can be attributed to the first couple days, and that can be attributed to he won it last year. Pressure's off his back. Like for years, it's Rory's great. Rory's arguably the best golfer in the world. Just can't get over the hump at Augusta. Cannot get that green jacket. And the fact that he did it last year overcame serious mental obstacles with some amazing shots followed by some brutal misses a year ago, on 18. For him to do what he did yesterday and throughout this tournament was unbelievable. And I think we're in a very, very fascinating spot with Rory McIlroy. Whereas, and again, I do not claim to be an expert on the history of golf, far from it. But I do care about historical rankings as it pertains to NFL, particularly as it pertains to quarterbacks in the NBA. I love making top 10, top 50 lists in NBA history. If you look at golf, you look at the most majors. Obviously, Nicklaus has got the most, followed by Tiger. If you look at the standings, say, all-time, major championships, Rory McIlroy has 6. If he gets 3 more, and Rory's 35, 36 years of age, he's still pretty young and in relatively great shape. If Rory gets 3 more, he breaks into the top 5. Now, he's not going to, it's almost certain unless he just goes on an insane run. He's not going to catch Tiger. He's certainly not going to catch Jack Nicklaus. He'd have to win triple the majors he's got now to catch Jack. But I think we're talking about a run that is not going to be like prime Tiger where it's, late 90s, early 2000s, where is this the most dominant American professional athlete that we have going, which Tiger, you can make that case. Like after Michael Jordan's retirement in 98, because Tiger actually won his first major in 97. After that, Tiger was kind of the dominant athlete. I'd say it went Jordan basically throughout all of the 90s with a break in between. Tiger from late 90s to mid 2000s, and I think he handed that title over to LeBron James or Michael Phelps if we're talking, individual sports, which golf obviously is. It's a remarkable accomplishment by Rory, and he talked after the tournament about what this accomplishment means for him from a mental standpoint and what it can show a lot of people through this.
What do you think this tournament and this golf course has taught you about life?
Good things come to those who wait, maybe. Yeah, just keep going. Just keep your head down and keep going. And if you put the hours in and you work on the right things, eventually it'll come good for you.
And, when you listen to pressers like that and interviews that Rory's done in the past, I haven't watched the documentary yet on Amazon Prime. I think it covers a lot of his it was as compelling sports as we all saw in all of last year of him, finally getting over the hump and winning that green jacket. Is that, I'm somewhere, I say I'm mostly a political moderate and mostly lean left on most issues, lean right on the others. By and large, a moderate. I kind of apply I'm on that same sort of spectrum as it pertains to the question of, should athletes be role models? Like, shout out to my good friend, Addison Ragland, my former co-host on the Triple Option Sports Radio show a couple of falls ago. She's fantastic. We kind of had this argument back and forth. She's like, athletes are role models because people see them on television, kids see them on television, and there's an element of just by not osmosis, but just by watching on their television screens, they absorb how athletes handle themselves. I think there's truth to that. I don't think it's always you absorb everything. It depends on the kind of person, how the kid's brain works. I also don't believe or subscribe to remember the old Charles Barkley 1990s ad, I am not a role model. And Charles has since said, hey, doctors, teachers, lawyers, these are role models. Like, athletes aren't. I'm somewhere in between. I don't think, people look to athletes to be the bastion of morality, so to speak. But I do think it doesn't hurt athletes if it's authentic, if they're authentically seem like good, easy people to root for. And I put Rory McIlroy in that category. I mean, when Tiger was going through his runs, again, there were different reasons people didn't like Tiger, or he was too dominant, or, oh my gosh, he's too emotional on the course. You don't show any emotion playing golf and whatever. And obviously in recent years, it's been more issues with Tiger, even as recently as a couple of weeks ago, that have nothing to do with golf. But I think there's something to be said about the likable, easy to root for athlete. And when you have Rory where, hey, monkey's off his back, like it's all gravy from here. The pressure on Rory moving forward is how many majors can he get? Right? Like that's the question. He's got a couple of Masters. Again, no one outside of, 3 other golfers have gone back-to-back at Augusta. He's obviously very comfortable at the course. I mean, yesterday it's, oh my gosh, is Rose going to steal this thing? And then Rose had a couple of rough holes in the middle, and just McIlroy was kind of steady from there, just birdie a couple of holes here and there, and then was able to come away with the win at the end. So kudos to Rory McIlroy, unbelievable tournament at the Masters yesterday. And, listen, there's certain sporting events. I say the Masters, March Madness, World Cup, I would put in that category, Super Bowl, where there's like an unspoken aura around it, right? Like, you hear the music, you hear Jim Nantz, a tradition unlike any other. Jim Nantz is one of the greatest broadcasters ever. And, yes, are the rules sometimes kind of dumb, to be honest? At least maybe this is my Gen Z side showing, but you can't have your phone at the course. Well, it's like, well, what if I'm like taking business calls, or what if there's something going on in my family personally that I need to be easily communicated or contacted at all times. Like, not crazy about all those, but there is kind of a beautiful element. It's kind of the last area of sports where you'll see this, where when the winner of the Masters puts in that last one, and you see all the patrons, not fans, patrons, just cheering, clapping, high-fiving, and whatever, pumping their fists, no phones in sight. And there's something cool about that. Again, am I crazy about the rules? Not really, but there's something kind of cool about it from an aesthetic standpoint. Okay, let's shift to the NBA. And the rest of the show is just going to be NBA. Going to be doing awards predictions, not even just predictions, or how I would vote if I had a vote for MVP, All-NBA awards, Defensive Player of the Year, things of that nature, predictions, and look ahead to some of the playoff series we got set. We got Knicks, Hawks, we got Nuggets and Timberwolves, we got Raptors and Cavs, and then to me, most notable is the Rockets versus Lakers series, because we get LeBron versus KD part 4. I think we're all here for it. So I'll preview those series, and at the end of today's show, predict the playing games, the first 4 playing games before we get the 2 elimination games on Friday. So stay tuned for all of those things. But it's safe to say the last, call it, week and a half for the NBA has not been ideal as it pertains to the tanking conversation. And just a couple of quick notes is that on Friday, and this Friday wasn't the last day of the regular season. It was the second to last day. There's no games on Saturday. The last regular season games were yesterday. 168 players missed the game, were inactive due to either injury or illness on Friday. 168 players. You also add the component of, as it pertains to the tanking conversation, is that this is the first time in the history of the NBA. This shocked me. That 8 teams have lost 55 or more games. 8 teams. Almost a third of the league lost 55 or more games. And it's obviously not because there's obviously there's talent gaps between Oklahoma City and the Washington Wizards, of course. But it's not that, the talent disparity, all of the best players in the league are with this set of teams, and then the rest, it's the haves and the have-nots, and the Wizards and the Grizzlies and the Kings, they have no talent whatsoever. That's obviously not true. The availability of the players is the question. I want to say this on the front end because I think this gets really, really misconstrued by fans, by bad actors on the internet trying to promote an agenda. Let's keep it 100% on here. Players do not sit. Organizations sit players. Right? You're not going to have Jason Tatum's maybe a bad example because he's coming off an Achilles. You're not going to have Nikola Jokic go to the Nuggets. Hey, guys, knee's kind of sore, need a day off. Now, I'm sure he'll be vocal to the training staff like, hey, knee's not feeling 100%. Da-da-da. The training staff makes the call to sit the player. Organizations, coaches, they make the call on whether to sit guys. I've heard Steph Curry talk about for years like, yeah, do I feel like I could have went? Could have played, wanted to play. Yeah. Organization thought it was better for me to sit out. And the Warriors have a great medical staff, but that's the reality of the NBA. Organizations, medical staffs, they decide whether or not you're playing, whether they can clear you to play. So I want to make that abundantly clear. The players aren't like, yeah, I just kind of don't feel like playing tonight. That's not it. You don't get to the NBA. You don't get to the highest level of sports in your field, in basketball, without loving to play the game of basketball. Now, there are guys who are more passionate than others. There are a few guys that get by just on raw talent. But you get to the NBA, you get to the single best players in the entire planet, the best basketball league in the world. You love to play the game. And so I want to get that out of the way. But the tanking problem is a real thing. And there have been solutions on how to solve it. That there have been folks that are equating the shortening the season with the tanking conversation, which I think is at times a mistake. I talked about this, I guess, a few weeks ago when Steve Kerr was saying, hey, yeah, we should shorten the season to 72 games. Take 10 games off the schedule. You can spread the calendar out a little bit more. I think in that you would have to incorporate more practices, because I think the biggest problem with not the NBA, but American basketball in general, and why the world kind of has an advantage over us right now, more practices, less games. Like, that's more repetition, more opportunities to get better individually and as a collective before you actually play the games that matter. Whereas in America, it's AAU, it's tournaments, it's playing 3 games a day on Saturdays. Like, that doesn't necessarily make you, that's not the only way you can get better. The fundamentals are kind of lost in that shuffle. But when you have conversations, I mean, last Tuesday, my Warriors took on the Sacramento Kings. Warriors won, I think, 115-110. The Kings have a lead. They're up by 1 with about 2 minutes and change to go. The Kings, with I assume, knowing the Warriors were in the bonus, intentionally fouled Seth Curry. Now, he ain't his brother. Obviously, Steph's greatest shooter ever. Seth ain't bad in his own right. Seth can shoot the 3 and obviously can make free throws. They intentionally fouled Seth Curry with the Warriors in the bonus, up 1 with 2 minutes and change to go. And the NBA opens an investigation, and they come out saying, yeah, the Kings weren't trying to lose. Their coach is just incompetent, Doug Christie. Now, I don't think Doug Christie's that good of a coach. I think he knew, I would hope so at least, yeah, Warriors are in the bonus. The question is, were the Kings trying to lose that basketball game? And I think so much of the tanking conversation and eliminating it from the league, or no, I shouldn't say eliminating it, because if you look at teams like the Pistons, I think they won like 20 games or something. They got the first overall pick, drafted Cade Cunningham, to the number 1 seed in the East a few years later. The San Antonio Spurs were straight garbage in the years preceding them drafting Victor Wembanyama. They'd say tanking worked out pretty well for us. The Oklahoma City Thunder, now they didn't draft Shea. They traded for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander after 1 year with the Clippers. They actually made the playoffs Shea's second year with Chris Paul, but then they went into the gutter, and it got them Jalen Williams, and in particular got them Chet Holmgren, and they were able to build this. So tanking, you can't say it doesn't work, but here's who it generally works for: the well-run franchises. Now the Pistons post the 04 championship and then all those Eastern Conference finals they made in a row, ended by LeBron's Cavs in 07. From that point on, we haven't really looked at the Pistons as a well-run franchise. They went through a really long streak where they didn't even win a playoff game in that stretch. But generally, you look at history, you look at the last 40 years, oh yeah, Pistons were great in the 80s. They were good in the 90s. They won a championship in the 2000s. Like, they've been a successful franchise. They've won 3 championships. Eventually, they're going to get it right. Teams with championship success, they eventually get it right. The Thunder, Sam Presti, maybe the best run organization in the league. The Spurs in the last 25 years, that's the gold standard. That's the best organization in basketball. The Wizards, the Kings, the Pacers were bad this year. Now the Pacers probably were tanking because they knew Halliburton was going to be out. Siakam had a good year, but that was about it. I think the Pacers might be kind of scary next year. But look at all of these bad teams. They're usually in the lottery every year. Dallas, now that they made the dumbest trade in modern NBA history, trading Luka, love Cooper Flagg, they're going to be in the lottery for a couple more years. And so how do you eliminate or at least combat tanking? I think there are 2 solutions. Number 1, eliminate the lottery entirely. Make it like the NFL draft. Worst record gets the first pick, and so on and so forth. Like, that's what that is. Like, the Mavs don't get, if that were the case, Mavs do not get Cooper Flagg. I mean, Cooper Flagg, I guess he would have went to Washington a year ago or something, which would have kind of sucked. We'd rather see, no offense to DC, but we'd rather see Cooper Flagg with an organization that's won a championship relatively recently. Wizards won a championship in 78, I think it was. It's been a while. Or number 2, the 14 lottery teams all have the equivalent chances to get the first overall pick. So that there's not an element of, okay, once we get to March and we know we're well out of the playoffs, well out of the play-in, you're in a spot where, man, if we lose this game, I remember there was a game last week between, I think, the Jazz and the Grizzlies, and I think the Grizzlies were sitting like 11 players, the Jazz close to that. Wendy was talking about on ESPN that how if the Jazz win, their chances to get the number 1 pick, their ping pong odds drop precipitously. The same with the Grizzlies. Like, both teams really don't want to win this basketball game. And if the percentages based on record are taken out of the equation, and it's just, this is an even playing field. Worst 14 teams, even playing field. You all have the equivalent chances to get the number 1 overall pick. Well, that incentivizes teams to say, hey, let's go for the plan. Now, the other side of that coin is, yeah, but if we get to the play-in, win or 2 playing games, then we're out of the lottery. I guess pick your poison. Do you not want to be in the playoffs at all? Like, eventually you do want to see some sort of progression in the right direction. So I'm not against tanking as a practice. I'm not. It worked for the Pistons, worked for the Spurs, worked for the Thunder. I mean, being bad for years helped the Warriors get Steph Curry. Like, that's helped the Cavs get LeBron. Eventually it can work out for you if you are able to run your organization in such a way in which you put talent around those guys. But the almost epidemic, how it's gotten to this point where teams are sitting 10 players for games, in which I know 10 players in your roster aren't all hurt. There's no way. You're trying to lose, and that hurts the product on the floor. It absolutely does. Again, when you have 168 players missing this past Friday across the whole NBA, that's a problem. That's something that has to be addressed. And I'm curious. It's gotten so big, I think it's kind of unavoidable for the commissioner, Adam Silver, for the NBA, for the Players Association. I'm sure they worked something out this offseason, but there are numerous ways to combat tanking, but the current system is obviously not working, and that's putting it mildly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, going to look at some of my early takeaways on the 4-set playoff matches that we got, 2 out East, 2 out West. We've still got 4 more to settle through the play-in tournament. Very excited to get at all of that on Carving Up Live in just 1 minute. Stay tuned. Back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. I forgot to mention this in my Rory McIlroy segment, so I'll say it now. Part of my affinity too for Rory is the fact that 20 years ago, I've got on here. November 2004, so 22 years ago. Tomato, right? As a 15-year-old, he signed a letter of intent to play golf where I go to school, East Tennessee State University. So, then of course, over time, it's like, yeah, Rory, you don't need to play college golf. You can, go straight to the pros. But that would have been dope to see him, go to ETSU. But yeah, Rory's great, easy guy to root for, and dope that he went back to back in the Masters, which only 3 other guys have done in the history of the sport. Also, before we get to further NBA topics, check out our QR code. Scan the QR code top left corner of your screen to check out some Carving It Up merch. We got hats, we got t-shirts, we got everything you can possibly imagine as it relates to Carving Up merch. Scan the QR code top left corner of your screen. We've got also some other great merch from our other content creators on the grid: Barry Grant Jr. and the All Even Podcast, Alfred Parsard Jr., Metropolitan Report, Cowboys Campaign, Mike and Josh. Great shows on the Grid Network. Check all of them out and check out their merch. Again, scan the QR code top left corner of your screen. You can also check out some just regular old Grid Network merch as well. Hats, t-shirts, the whole bit that say GRYD, the Grid Podcast Network. All right, let's shift into a sort of a preview, so to speak. We're going to make official predictions on Friday's show for the first round of the NBA playoffs, which I'm very, very excited to do. But as it stands today, of the 8 playoff matchups for the first round, we got 4 set. By tomorrow night, we're going to have 6 that are set, and then by Friday, we'll have all of them set. So first and foremost, we'll start in the Eastern Conference. You got the Toronto Raptors, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Listen, I don't know if NBA TV, because again, the new television deal obviously has, as Mike Breen and other commentators lamented yesterday during games, local broadcasters can't do the first round anymore for their teams, which is really a bummer, and I hate that for them. NBA TV in the first round every year always does like the 2 least interesting playoff series. If NBA TV's doing playoff games, again, they haven't announced the schedule beyond this coming weekend. Let me tell you, Toronto and Cleveland's going to get at least 2 or 3 NBA TV games. I'll tell you right now. But the Cavs are 7.5-point favorites in game 1. They're favorites to win the series. So Toronto's had an excellent season. Brandon Ingram's been great. Scotty Barnes has had an all-NBA caliber season. My all-NBA team's coming up in about 10 minutes or so. But I think, and again, Toronto's a young team. They're growing their building. They made some good moves at the trade deadline a year ago. I just think for Cleveland, for all of my reservations for James Harden, Donovan Mitchell, by and large, has been a solid playoff performer. A couple of years ago, he got hurt during the second round against Boston. They wouldn't have beaten Boston. The Celtics were on a roll to the 2024 championship, but could they have pushed it 6 or maybe even 7? Who knows? It's a well-coached team. Kenny Atkinson's one of the best coaches in basketball. There's a talent gap, obviously, with Evan Mobley. All these guys, there's no Jared Allen. Cleveland should win this series. Not going to make my official prediction until Friday, but I'm thinking it's probably, I got something in my eye. I'm thinking it's something like 5 games at worst case for the Cavs, 6. The other Eastern Conference series, and I got to admit, when the games ended yesterday, the first slate of games, so you had basically the Eastern Conference games, most Eastern Conference games on at 6 o'clock Eastern time, and then the Western Conference games at 8:30 last night. So once the Eastern Conference bracket was in essence set around 8:30 last night, and I looked, I'm thinking, as a guy who picked the Knicks to go to the finals before the season started, of all the first-round matchups, this is about the least ideal that you could have imagined for New York. They're playing the Atlanta Hawks, who've been one of the hottest teams in the NBA. They actually got a better record than the Knicks post-All-Star break. Jalen Johnson is an All-NBA caliber season. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, they're well-coached. Quinn Snyder, really, really talented young team. They trade Trae Young, and the team gets better. Nothing against Trae, but bad defender, inefficient shooter. Outside of the one run in 2021, which is ironically the last time these two teams played in the playoffs, and the Hawks won that series in 5, the Hawks never really accomplished anything with Trae. So kudos to the organization for taking their medicine, understanding what moves they had to make for the future, and it's paid off for them in the present. The Knicks are obviously favored to win the series. I think I heard someone say on TV today that no team has more pressure on them to go to the finals than the Knicks do, because Denver's won a championship. So is Boston, Oklahoma City. The Spurs, people are going to crush the Spurs. They don't go to the finals. They got Wemby's 22. They've got plenty of time with all their young talent. The Knicks, okay, you lost in 7 games in 2024 to the Pacers, but injuries kind of wrecked your season. But then you lost the Pacers the next year in the Eastern Conference Finals in 6 games. Now you're in a spot where Boston's had injuries. Obviously, Tatum had missed up until March. Has looked good, but not quite prime Jason Tatum, whereas a year from now, you assume he'll be back to being full 100% Tatum. The Pistons, young, talented, Cade's back, hopefully healthy. But outside of Cade, you don't really trust anyone on that Detroit Pistons team to get their own shot consistently. It's as wide open as it has ever been for the New York Knicks to win or maybe not to win a championship, but certainly to win the Eastern Conference this year. As good as Atlanta is defensively, they can score the basketball. They're young, long, athletic. This feels like a 6-gamer, man. This is, and it's a bad spot. I like the Knicks to beat Boston the second round. But if you're Boston, you're getting either Philadelphia without Embiid or a Magic team that, if you saw them against Boston last night with the Celtics not playing any of their guys, a disastrous loss for the Orlando Magic. They're going to fire Jamal Mosley. It's been a bad season based on expectation. Boston wins that series in a gentleman's sweep in all likelihood, either against Philly or against the Magic. So they'll be rested. Meanwhile, the Knicks will have to go through in all likelihood, unless I'm just overestimating the Hawks or underestimating the Knicks, a 6-game battle, maybe a 7-game battle with the Atlanta Hawks. So I'm leaning Knicks. It would not be the most shocking first-round upset I've ever seen if Atlanta pulls this off. The way they played late in the season, I mean, if you're New York, the way it broke, God, we wish we could have gotten Toronto. We wish we would have gotten Philadelphia without Embiid. Instead, you get, of the teams 5 seed on below, you got the best one in the Atlanta Hawks. So this could be a tougher series than people expect for the Knicks. But and to be fair, they have won the last 2 years. They've won both of their first round series in 6 games. Against Philadelphia, 2024, they won in 6. And then last year, they did so against the Detroit Pistons with Brunson hitting the game winner in Detroit. So to the Western Conference, it feels weird to call this a rivalry because we haven't seen it in the conference. We can't see it in the NBA finals because they're in the West, but we haven't seen it in a conference finals. But Denver, Minnesota, there's kind of a push-pull, bad blood kind of thing going on there where 2023, the Nuggets went on en route to winning the title, beat Minnesota in the first round, but Minnesota was hurt and didn't have their full cast of characters. And then the following year, Denver's the defending champion. We all think they're going back to the finals. They're up 3-2. Minnesota down 20 in Game 7 comes back to win with Ant Edwards not even playing his best game. And so it's, Timberwolves kind of got Denver's number. Well, this year, the Nuggets took 3 or 4 against Minnesota, and Denver goes into the playoffs as the hottest team in basketball. They won 12 straight to end the regular season, and now they come in against a Minnesota team where how's Ant feeling? Where's his health out? He didn't play enough games, unfortunately, to be named to any of the All-NBA teams. But Minnesota, I will say to their credit, I'm trying to think. So the last 2 years. Okay, so the last 6 playoff series, so that would be the last 2 years because that got to back-to-back Western Conference Finals. I picked against them in all of them because I thought the other squad either had a talent or an experience advantage over Minnesota. And again, they got to the conference finals as a 3 seed in 2024. It was shocking who they beat. Denver to get there. It wasn't stunning that they got there. Last year was kind of shocking. And they had some breaks go their way. They played a Lakers team that was kind of fool's gold, bad defensive team. Luka was sick. Bron was old. Ant played an unbelievable series. And then they ran into a Warriors team where Steph Curry hurts his hamstring 10 minutes into game 1. And, of course, they're going to roll Golden State from there. And then they get clocked by OKC. So, again, this kind of goes back to the Knicks-Hawks conversation. Crazier. I'd be less shocked if the Hawks beat the Knicks, to have that on the record. But the way Denver's playing, Jokic is playing unbelievable basketball. Jamal Murray's had by far hit the best season of his career, all-star and likely an all-NBA guy. See if I've got him on my all-NBA team coming up in about 5 minutes or so. Looking at this Denver team, you get Cam Johnson in exchange for Michael Porter Jr. That's worked. Your bench is solid. Adelman's done a good job. I'll be honest, with this Denver team a month ago, I remember talking and saying, yeah, they can win a playoff series just by virtue of having the best player in the world in Jokic. You've always got a puncher's chance. We saw it last year against the Thunder, taking OKC 7. On the other side of that coin, they're not good defense. Man, the way they played in the last month, and the way that Spurs game, when both Jokic and Wemby were unbelievable, it's, okay, I think the Spurs are better than Denver. With that being said, experience favors Denver. Championship pedigree favors Denver. As much as I love Wemby, I think he's going to dominate the league for 10 plus years. Jokic is the better player today. This is why I said last week, I pray that we get a second round series with these two, and barring any upsets, it looks like we will. So I'm leaning the Denver Nuggets to win this series over the Timberwolves. Again, the Timberwolves made the conference finals a year ago as a 6 seed. I don't really think they'll do it again, but who knows? And Edwards kind of has a history of knocking out giants. He has beaten Jokic once. Now, I think this Denver team's better than the one 2 years ago, but we'll see. And then finally, again, among set playoff matchups, Houston Rockets, LA Lakers. Now, the funny thing about this series is a month ago, I said, yeah, I don't buy the Lakers even when they were healthy whatsoever as a team that can even get to the conference finals, much less the finals, and certainly not winning a championship. However, if they face the Rockets in round 1, I'm definitively picking the Lakers. Well, since then, Houston's played good basketball. They finished the season winning 9 of their last 10, and the Lakers, on the other hand, lost Luka and Austin Reeves to injury. Now, according to Shams and multiple insiders in Los Angeles, Reeves almost certainly won't play a minute in this series. Luka, he's coming back from Europe, I think tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. They're hoping Luka can return in, I guess, the earliest game 4 or 5 at the latest 6. Houston's a gigantic favorite to win the series. I heard Stephen A. today say the Rockets will sweep them. I don't think Houston's going to sweep the Lakers, and here's why. Do they have the better team, the better roster? No question. Do they have the better coach? Debatable. I'm not a huge Ime fan. I'm also not crazy about JJ Redick, so call that a wash. Here's what I find interesting about this series is that, and LeBron sort of alluded to it last week. Remember when he had that, I think it was last Sunday, against the Dallas Mavericks. He went for like 30, 15, and 9 or something crazy. It's like, is this prime 2018 LeBron? This is crazy. Is that now that he knows, because he had to reduce his role to defer, and it worked for the benefit of the team, to defer to Luka and to defer to a certain degree to Austin Reeves, who became the team's second option offensively, and then kind of get his when he had his opportunities. Well, now he's the unquestioned alpha. Everyone knows Bron's controlling everything. He's running the offense. He's setting guys up with looks. He's getting his own shots. With that sort of certainty and to a degree comfort, obviously Bron isn't now what he was in his prime, but still I think one of the 15, 20 best players in the league. He was an all-star this year. He shot over 50% for the field, average over 20 a game. Like, Bron's still an excellent player. Bron's still an all-star caliber guy. I think there's hey, I don't have to worry about deferring to anybody. So with that combined, now I think Houston's length and physicality is going to bother the Lakers a lot. I do. Amon Thompson, Şengün's not a very good defender. KD can still, in spurts, similar to LeBron, can play some solid defense. Because of how, what's the word I'm looking for the Rockets? They're not a good clutch team this year. They got a losing record in the clutch. The Lakers were the best team in the clutch this season. I don't think the gap between these two teams is so wide that just on talent alone, the Rockets will cruise. They obviously have the better team in the spot. But I think a couple of these go either way games, that favors the Lakers. That favors LeBron James, who's been in a million of these close playoff games. I'm thinking this thing goes 6. I'm leaning the Rockets. If Luka comes back by a game 6, again, that's tough because he's already a bad defender, so coming back from injury isn't going to help. And then offensively, is he just going to come back and be Luka Doncic? That's a big ask. And then Reeves isn't going to play the whole series. If he does, I think it would be a mistake because they said the oblique injury, it's like 4 to 6 weeks. There's no way he'll be available for this. But just getting LeBron versus Kevin Durant in a playoff series in 2026, it's not Bron and Steph, but never forget, LeBron and KD played in the finals in 2012 when LeBron actually won his first championship with the Heat. And then they faced him back-to-back finals in 17 and 18. Bron was amazing. KD was on the winning Warriors, won finals MVP both years. So to get this with KD at, was KD 36, I think, and KD's 37. LeBron's 41, year 23 for LeBron, year 18 for Kevin Durant. And both are playing excellent basketball. If LeBron had played enough games, he'd be in the All-NBA consideration. KD is certainly going to be an All-NBA player. It's unbelievable. By the way, KD, 5th all-time leading scorer. Bron, all-time leading scorer. Pretty dope to see these guys still doing what they're doing. Why? Because they love the game. They're still committed to being the best that they can possibly be. All right. I'm looking forward to this. So, I'm far from the process of being able to be part of the NBA media as it pertains to casting ballots for All-NBA, for MVP, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, all of those things. However, it's kind of like the segment that I have during the football season. We can go and pull it up as always.
Were I a betting man?
If I were a bet man. I'm not a bet man, but if I were a bet man, this is how I would pick games. If I had a ballot, I had a say in how postseason awards were laid out for the 2025-26 NBA season. This is how it would go. Before we get to individual awards, let's go to the All-NBA team. So first team All-NBA, I think should be relatively unanimous. Again, it sucks that Cade Cunningham isn't eligible for this. It really is. I've got Luka, obviously Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, that's a no-brainer. I've got Luka Doncic on here because I think they're investigating whether, because Luka played 64 games. If they're looking at kind of a fine print rule that Luka missed a couple games due to the birth of a child, and that there is extraordinary circumstances in which those wouldn't count against you. Like it's a process thing. It's going to generate a lot of buzz over the next few days. I think Luka's going to get the ruling in his favor. Again, the 65-game rules was so dumb. Again, Cade would be on here if not for that rule. Luka, I think, will be eligible because, again, he led the league in scoring. You're going to be first-team All-NBA if you lead the league in scoring. Jaylen Brown was sensational. Put together an MVP candidate type of season, holding the fort down for Boston with Jason Tatum out. And then Nikola Jokic, Victor Wembanyama, those are no-brainers. Those are indisputably the two best bigs in basketball who had insane seasons in their right. And shocker, you'll see both on my MVP ballot. Second team All-NBA, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey. I remember it was a discussion I was having with a couple of NBA fans early in the season. Is Tyrese Maxey better than Jalen Brunson? Maxey's excellent. Maxey is one of the better natural scorers, 6'3" and under, that there is in the league. I still, just because of playoff experience, the fact that these two did see each other in a playoff series, albeit 2 years ago, Brunson outplayed Maxey. The Knicks won that series, and Jalen is generally a pretty darn clutch player. So Brunson, I think, is a little bit better than Maxey. They both, in my opinion, should be second-team All-NBA. Donovan Mitchell quietly had a great year for the Cavs. Again, Cleveland didn't get that much buzz other than when they traded for James Harden. Kevin Durant. Kevin freaking Durant is in year 18, 37 years old, and he averaged 26 a game on 50+% shooting. He's second-team All-NBA. And we talk about guys, Kawhi is not quite as old as KD, but for Kawhi Leonard, where availability has always been a concern for this guy, what is this, year 15? And all the chaos, and the Clippers got off to a 6-21 start. I was watching when they were playing my Warriors last night. I was actually watching the Clippers broadcast, and they kept harping on that. The fact that this team is in this position, in the play-in, if they win 2 games, they're in the playoffs. Kawhi had easily, I think, the best season of his career in Los Angeles. kudos to Kawhi Leonard. I think is an easy choice for second team All-NBA. Some people have KD in their third team. I think he's absolutely second team. And as for my third team All-NBA, it was tough. I took a couple of guys, in and out. Stephon Castle, I gave some consideration to just because of his impact and his jump into year 2. Jamal Murray, though, we kind of been waiting for that big breakout Jamal Murray season. I think we kind of got it this year. First-time All-Star. He was healthy. He held the fort down for Denver, which is another reason I think the Nuggets are a scary team when Jokic was out. So Jamal Murray, give him that nod. Jalen Johnson. Again, we haven't talked a lot of Hawks because it's Atlanta. They haven't been a playoff or certainly not a championship contender, but kind of in and out of that play-in mix. Hawks are one of the best teams in the league post-All-Star break in large part because of the bunch of the trades. Jalen Johnson's a triple-double threat any given night. Solid defensive end as well. Denny Avdia, All-Star caliber season in his own right for the Portland Trailblazers, getting into the 8th seed. In the Western Conference, that's for a team as young as Portland with Avdia, with Scoot Henderson and all these guys, Tumani Kamara, Drew Holiday's kind of their only veteran. Dame, who's been out all season due to the Achilles. We'll see what he does with them a year from now. Avdia's had a great year. Chet Holmgren is going to finish second for Defensive Player of the Year, as he should. Third team All-NBA, I would put him on that list. And Jalen Duren. Again, we talk about those number 2 guys kind of holding down the fort with the best player out. When Cade went down, I don't think any of us thought that they'd blow the number 1 seed to Boston. I don't think we thought they would finish as admirably as they did down the stretch, and that's in large part due to Jalen Duren, who, spoiler alert, this is not the only postseason award that he will win. Matter of fact, let's just go and get to the award that he'll win. So as far as most improved player, I'm giving it to Jalen Duren. I think the fact that he averaged a year ago, he averaged a double-double, strong double-double, about 10 points. This year, he averaged a 19-point double-double. So he almost doubled his points, held it down for the Pistons. And again, this is a Detroit team. Jalen Duren's a big. This is a Detroit team that kind of struggles to get individually for these guys to get their own shot in the offensive end of the floor without Cade. So for Jalen Duren to do what he did 19 a game, 10 plus rebounds, I think he's the most improved player of this 2025-26 NBA season. Sixth man of the year was close between Jaime Jaquez Jr. and Keldon Johnson. I gave the edge to Jaime Jaquez Jr. He averaged 2 more points a game than Keldon Johnson. You look at the fact that he's a better defensive player than Keldon Johnson is. Again, the Heat are the 10 seed, ironically, for the second straight year in a row, even though they made the playoffs last year out of the play-in. Odd that the Miami Heat player that on my ballot wins an award is not the one that scored 83 points. It's a weird set of circumstances. But Jaime Jaquez Jr., he would be my 6th man of the year. Coach of the year, I would give that some great candidates, but I give it to Joe Mazzulla of the Boston Celtics. Again, for similar reasons that I put Jaylen Brown, first team All-NBA, is that we looked at this Boston team as, they'll be good. They'll be in the playoffs. But we assumed Tatum was going to be out for the year, and Porzingis gone, and Al Horford gone, and Drew Holiday gone. A lot of young guys on the squad. I think you saw, if you watched that game last night on ESPN, and shout out to Mark Jones, by the way, on a legendary career at ESPN who called that game with Doris Burke. If you watched that Celtics game against Orlando last night, it's, okay, Boston's sitting everybody, and Orlando's got a lot to play for. They like to get to potentially the 7 seed and have a home playing game. And Boston beat them. I mean, you got Luka Garza, Baylor Shireman, like all of these guys stepping up and playing the kind of basketball they did this year for Boston. Kada as well. Joe Mazzulla, I think, is the coach of the year in the NBA. No one, I don't care. Even the most optimistic Celtics fan did not think that this was a team that would be second place in the Eastern Conference with a great chance to go back to the finals for the 3rd time in the Jason Tatum era. Joe Mazzulla is the coach of the year, in my opinion, this season. Clutch player of the year, a new award that I absolutely love. I give it to SGA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He led the NBA in clutch scoring per game in clutch situations. He averaged about 6 points a game, which for those who don't know, clutch games in the NBA are defined as final 5 minutes of a game, the scores within 5 points or less. So close games within 5 points at any point in the final 5 minutes. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in those spans scored on average about 6 a game, which is highly impressive. SGA would be my clutch player of the year. Defensive player of the year, I think it should be unanimous. It's Victor Wembanyama. Victor Wembanyama, and oh yeah, Victor Wemben freaking Yama. You look at what he did this year, okay? Led the league by a mile in blocks and block shots. Wemby this year, if I have it in my notes. Wemby this year, 3.1 blocks a game on average. And he can guard the perimeter. Like, he's not going to be, Draymond Green or Drew Holiday, prime Draymond Green or Drew Holiday, on the perimeter. But this is a guy who can be able to lock up your best center, This is somebody who could be able to switch on pick and rolls. The length, we know about it. Wemby's the undisputed defensive player of the year. Thank God. Again, this is why I hate the 65-game rule. Thank God he was able to get to the number of games played on the Spurs in the Spurs win on Friday night to get to that 65-game rule, which you also have to play 20 minutes in that game. Otherwise, Chet Holmgren would have won. And with respect to Chet, he's a great defensive player. It would have been an absolute travesty, the likes of which we haven't seen since 2013 when Marc Gasol got it over LeBron James. Wemby, undisputed, best defensive player in the NBA this season. He will be the DPOY. I think it's not even a question. And as for Rookie of the Year, which was kind of a divided discussion in the NBA, I would give it to Cooper Flagg. It's the battle of the Duke guys. Cooper Flagg of the Dallas Mavericks would get the Rookie of the Year in my mind. Here's why I say that. Number one, for those who are saying, well, Con Knippel of the Charlotte Hornets, Charlotte had a really good season, might continue their season in the playoffs. We'll see. Here's the problem. When have we ever really looked at Rookie of the Year as an award where winning matters? I mean, if you look at winning, if you look at team success, I actually had this debate on, I didn't have this debate. This was one of the questions on the House of Highlights shoot at Clash that I was a part of in December was, hey, Carmelo Anthony should have gotten Rookie of the Year over LeBron in 2004. Because in part, the argument was the Nuggets were a playoff team and the Cavs weren't. But LeBron was the objectively better overall player. Numbers that were better. LeBron himself was carrying a bigger load with the Cavs than Melo was, obviously, with the Denver Nuggets. And I also look at this. As much as I love Con Knippel, he had an unbelievable shooting season. Cooper Flagg averaged more points than Con Knippel. He averaged more rebounds than Con Knippel. He averaged more assists than Con Knippel. Shot a slightly less percentage from the field than Con, but was the overall objectively better player. So I would give Rookie of the Year to Cooper Flagg. That's who I give it to. Again, I wouldn't have an issue if Con gets it, but I think what Cooper did this season, by the way, also having to carry a bigger load in Dallas as kind of the only guy, because Kyrie Irving's out for the year. Anthony Davis played like 2 seconds before he got traded to Washington. As great as Con was this season, you still got Brandon Miller, and you still got LaMelo Ball. You've got guys who you can defer to, guys who can take the scoring load, whereas that wasn't the case with Cooper Flagg in Dallas, and he averaged more points on a slightly lesser efficiency. So Cooper Flagg would be my Rookie of the Year, first overall pick out of Duke. Now, let's get to MVP, because this is where, I'm going to go one by one. If I had an MVP ballot, my top 5 finishers, or finalists, I should say, for the most coveted award in the NBA, and that's most valuable player. Number 5. Jaylen Brown of the Boston Celtics. Again, this is a guy who stepped up and showed up and showed out for the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum out up until March of this year. Jaylen Brown averaged 28 points a game on 47% from the field. Was able to man the load on that Celtics offense. Again, he's not going to win the award. I don't think anyone's arguing that. But in large part because Cade isn't eligible. Again, it was kind of a go either way for me. If Cade had played enough games, he didn't. That makes it easier. Jaylen Brown, to me, should finish 5th. Again, if we're talking most valuable player, you can make the case that Jaylen was more valuable than Cade Cunningham. Again, unfortunately, Cade didn't play enough games to be eligible for this award. Jaylen Brown would be 5th on my MVP ballot. Number 4 would be, assuming he's eligible, Luka Doncic. So Luka led the league in scoring this year, which is always going to help you in any MVP discussion or All-NBA discussion. He averaged 33 a game on 47% for the field, 7 rebounds, 8 assists. He was great. The thing that hurts him, again, I think he'll be eligible once they look at the ruling. Again, he missed some time due to the birth of his kids. I think they'll give him a pass for that. But he is an objectively horrible defender. Again, Lakers fans get mad at me for this, but if no one's arguing Luka should be MVP. But there was a time about a month ago when folks were saying, hey, should we give him consideration? I said, well, if you gave Luka the MVP, we did a segment on this last week, he would have by I think 5 or 6 points, or maybe 4 or 5, regardless, the worst defensive rating of any MVP in NBA history. Worse than any of Jokic's MVPs, worse than any of Nash's MVPs, worse than B's MVP, way worse than Steph Curry's MVPs. Which people tell me, what's the difference in Luka and Steph? Steph tries. That's the difference. Well, defense is optional with Luka. Steph, not a great defender. He'll try on that end, okay? He'll put some effort in. But still, Luka's unbelievable. Arguably the best scorer in the NBA going today. Led the league in scoring this year. Lakers the 4 seed. And he missed a lot of time due to injury. Luka would be 4th on my MVP ballot. This is where it gets tough, because if we're all being honest, the next 3 guys, these are the only guys that we are all arguing who should be MVP. These are the only three that whoever wins, maybe I'm wrong, but I highly doubt will win the award unanimously. It is, in no particular order, it is Nikola Jokic, it is Victor Wembanyama, it is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Those are the three. So in my number 3 spot for most valuable player in the NBA, and it was close, I have Victor Wembanyama in that number 3 spot. Now, Spurs fans might see this as, hey, like, oh, he's got to be at least 2. Listen, year 3 to be in that number 3 spot for MVP at age 22, Wemby's got a bright future ahead of him, to say the very least. If you look at what he did this year, averaged 25 a game, really got the scoring going late in the season, averaged 25 and 11, 3 blocks a game, 51% shooting, led the San Antonio Spurs to being the number 2 seed in the conference. And by the way, the Spurs did beat Oklahoma City 4 out of 5 times this season. That's why I hope and pray we get a Western Conference Finals between the Spurs and the Thunder. I think it'll be a blast. Wemby's, again, part of the reason, one of the many reasons he's above Luka is Wemby's let's call it 75 to 80% productivity, at least 75 to 80% of Luka's offensive productivity, and like 500% of Luka's productivity on defense. He's the best defensive player in basketball. The thing that put the two guys ahead of him is again, value in particular for one, just overall value of the team, and the other, a truly historic season. In the number 2 spot, and you'll know who number 1 is, obviously, based on who we have at number 2. In the number 2 spot on my MVP ballot, it is Nikola Jokic of the Denver Nuggets. So again, I went back and forth, whether Wemby 2, Jokic 2, and we can just show SGA is obviously number 1. But to go back to Jokic, Nikola Jokic this season, used to averaging triple-double was just something to be celebrated, and stop the game to acknowledge it, and Oscar Robertson shows up at your arena. Nikola Jokic makes it an annual tradition at this point. He averaged 27, 12, and 10 on 56% shooting. No one in NBA history has ever led the league in assists and rebounds in the same season. Nikola Jokic just did it, and again, gave you 27 a game. And by the way, the Nuggets finished the season as the hottest team in basketball, winning 12 straight to end the regular season. I do, though, have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander as the league MVP. Thunder fans have thought all season and going back to the playoffs that I hate Shai. I don't hate Shai. I think Shai's a good guy, first of all. Great leader for the Thunder, is somebody who's very even-keeled, doesn't overreact to the moment, is not somebody who's, there's ebbs and flows of a game, of a season, of a series. Shai's demeanor does not change, and that's the mark of a great leader. My issue with Shai is really just one thing, is the foul baiting. It's like, Shai, you average 30 a game. Okay, you do an incredible efficiency. As Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 31 a game on 55% shooting as a guard. That's amazing. By the way, chipped in 6 assists and 4 rebounds, but also leading the Oklahoma City Thunder, who everyone knows, okay, targets on the Thunder's back this season. They're the defending champions. Everyone, especially in the West, is gunning for OKC. Leading the Thunder to 64 wins this season. By the way, the 3rd straight year that the Thunder have been the number 1 seed in the West. You got to go back to like the Bulls with Jordan, the Warriors with Steph, in terms of teams that have gotten the 1 seed 3 straight seasons. SGA led the Thunder to that. That to me deserves some attention. But also the constant barrage of injuries that affected Oklahoma City, in particular, the second best player in the Thunder, Jalen Williams, who I know people are trying to poo-poo and say, isn't that good or isn't that important? Never forget, Jalen Williams had a 40-point game in a game 5 of the final last year. This dude can play. This dude's excellent. And so Chet at times was in and out of the lineup. For Shai to be as steady as he was, again, the foul baiting does drive me crazy, I'll be honest. Because unlike James Harden, who needed foul baiting to be a great and efficient scorer, Shai doesn't need it. Shai's a 50% shooter plus from the field, 55% shooting to be exact, as it pertains to his ability to score the basketball. Thunder have a great chance to go back-to-back. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to me, is the most valuable player in the NBA in 2026. I would have voted for him last year. If I had a vote, again, he led them to, 68 wins and similar offensive productivity to what he did this year. Like, I think with respect to Jokic and Wemby, to me, are the only 2 guys you can make an argument should be league MVP. Again, nothing against Luka and Jaylen Brown. They're not quite in that level, but they would be in the top 5. I think value, an incredible statistical season. It led to OKC winning, doing so, missing your second best player for most of the year. There's something to be said about that. And there was only a 4-win drop-off for OKC, which you had to imagine there'd be some drop-off. They won 68 games a year ago. So kudos to them. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, he would be my most valuable player in the 2025-2026 NBA season. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, my predictions for the NBA play-in tournament. First 4 games of it anyway. There's going to be 2 elimination games on Friday. We'll get to that when that time comes. But 2 Eastern Conference games, 2 Western Conference games. My prediction for those coming up in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. I appreciate everybody for stopping by on a Monday. Again, this is one of my favorite times of the sports calendar year. I heard someone argue on social media. They said, April is the best month in sports. And their case I'll get to in a moment. I still maintain and have for years, October is, I think, the unquestioned GOAT of the calendar in terms of sports. You get NFL and college football are midseason. Major League Baseball playoffs, NBA and NHL start back up. You got WNBA finals, like anything you can possibly imagine as it pertains to American team sports, it's going on in October. April's probably in second, though, okay? Because you've got no NFL or college football, but the two kind of merge with the NFL draft. You've got the Masters, the end of March Madness, NBA and NHL playoffs are starting. Baseball has already begun. Like, you got a lot of things going at the same time. And even the sports that aren't going, NFL, college, the kind of two become one in the NFL draft later this month, which again, Mock Draft 5.0 will be this Thursday. Again, we're moving Wednesday's show to Thursday because I want to be on air the day after the Golden State Warriors play-in game against the Clippers, which I will predict along with three others right now. Let's go and get the background music going. This is play-in action, a little bit of an appetizer of the playoffs. So we will start out east. We're going to go in order of when these games are going to be played. So we're going to go east, west, east, west. Out east, you've got the 10 seed versus the 9 seed, the Miami Heat taking on the Charlotte Hornets. Charlotte is a 5.5-point favorite at home at the Spectrum Center, which I've been to back in 2022 when they played my Warriors. Golden State unfortunately lost that game in overtime. It's very, very disappointing. There's no LaMelo Ball in that game too. Point being, it's a weird spot. Did Charlotte have a successful season if they get bounced by Miami in their first playing game? I feel like that's a weird spot where I feel like they kind of need to beat Miami, and then even if they lose to Philly or Orlando, hey, won 44 games this year. LaMelo was healthy. Concanipple, we hit on that draft pick. Brandon Miller, people crushed us for making that pick after Wemby was drafted in 2023. He's proved to be an indisputably better player than Scoot Henderson, so we made a nice move on that. Good coach, and Coach Lee, we like what we have here in Charlotte. We do want to see, at the very least, let's win a playing game at home. And I'll tell you right now, that is going to be, it's probably not saying much, and this may feel like a backhanded compliment, but that's going to be as loud as you'll hear the Spectrum Center in Charlotte in a decade. I mean, the Hornets have not been to the playoffs, I think, since 2016, if I'm not mistaken. They lost in 7 games to Dwayne Wade and the Heat. It's as loud as you'll hear the arena since then. There's optimism. We like our young core, Ball, Knipple, and Miller. Meanwhile, you got Miami coming in. It's been a weird season. Bam Adebayo, people were debating how ethical it was. Okay, whatever the heck that means. Drops 83 points in a game, second most in NBA history. And just like last year, the Miami are the 10 seed in the East. Now, the good news is for the Heat, last year, they were also the 10 seed, and they won 2 playing games, I believe, over the Bulls and over the Hawks to get in the playoffs, the 8 seed, before they got clocked by Cleveland. So just on Heat culture, and they've got Eric Spoelstra, I have a really hard, 5.5's a lot for an inexperienced team. It's the biggest game those guys have played. I'm going to take Charlotte to win this game 114-110 over the Miami Heat. I think it's a high-scoring game. I am taking Miami plus 5.5. Again, that's a lot of points, especially against a Charlotte team, again, that's never been in a situation like this. Miami has kind of lived in the play-in tournament. They're like the Warriors equivalent in the Eastern Conference. They're kind of always in the play-in tournament each and every season. Charlotte wins 114-110. The Heat season will be over. The Hornets will play a game on Friday, and if they win that game, they'll be in the playoffs as the 8th seed. Let's go out west. Again, these games, for the first 2 games, are tomorrow night. So Heat, Hornets tomorrow at 7:30 Eastern. Trailblazers and Suns will be the second of that doubleheader. You've got Portland coming in. By the way, the Suns are a 3.5-point favorite. Portland's coming in, just a quietly tumultuous year where after game 1 of the season, game 1 of 82, their coach gets arrested for involvement in alleged gambling fraud scheme in Chauncey Billups. So Billups gets arrested, gets basically fired by the team. You got Tiago Splitter coming in. Tiago Splitter, who unfortunately I think the only thing people remember his career for is that time he got blocked by LeBron in I think it was game 2 of the 2013 finals. He just got palmed at the rim by Braun. Tiago Splitter did an admirable job with this team this season. Again, I really like Portland's got in a good position. They've got young talent and some good veterans. The vets are Drew Holiday and Dame Lillard, who I'm sure has been in the ears of these guys and will be back this season. But you've also got Denny Avdia, all-star caliber guy. I've got him 3rd-team All-NBA. You've got Tumani Kamara. You've got Scoot Henderson, it's been a slow development, but he's gotten better over the course of the season. Meanwhile, for Phoenix, listen, for the Suns, everyone knew the Bradley Beal thing wasn't going to work. Kevin Durant, they move on from him and trade him to Houston, and in return, they get a guy who I've been very critical of and will continue as long as he continues his nonsense on the court, shenanigans that have nothing to do with basketball, Dillon Brooks. But Dillon Brooks, to his credit, did average 20 a game. We got to keep it real in the show. Dillon Brooks had a good season, and Devin Booker was probably my toughest omission from 3rd-team All-NBA. I think we've all just kind of gotten used to, Devin's going to give you 26 a game. That's just what he's going to do. He's a professional scorer of the basketball. I think at home in the spot, again, Phoenix has some guys. Obviously, D-Book's been to a finals, but Dillon Brooks, some of these other vets on the Suns, they played in the playoffs. They've been in these spots. I'm going to go, we have the graphic here, I'm going to go with Phoenix to win this game. So the line's actually moved down. It was Suns at minus 4.5 when I made this graphic. It's down to 3.5. So obviously the betting public is favoring Portland to a certain degree. I think Suns win. If it's 4.5, 3.5, doesn't matter. They cover either way. They win 118-109. This means Phoenix will stay basically where they're at right now. They'll be the 7th seed in the Western Conference playoffs. They will take on the San Antonio Spurs. The Blazers, season's not over, but their season will be on the line on Friday against either the Warriors or the Clippers. We'll get to predicting that game after we get to this game on Wednesday between the Orlando Magic and the Philadelphia 76ers. Philadelphia in this game, slight favorite, minus 1.5. So this is Boston just licking their chops at whoever they get in this match. I mean, honestly, because if you get Orlando, you get a team whose locker room appears to be as toxic as any non-tanking team in the league is right now. I mean, Jamal Mosley and Paolo Banchero are on the same page, and there's been some internal fighting going on at press conferences. The Magic have greatly disappointed this season. I thought this Orlando team gets the conference finals. That went up in smoke early in the season, and it really never got better. So you've got a team that's almost certainly going to fire its coach. It didn't have the season it thought it could, so their disappointment there. They had a brutal loss yesterday, like I mentioned earlier, to Boston's backups. And then for Philadelphia, if they had Joel Embiid, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to pick the Celtics, but Embiid, Maxey, Paul George is back fresh and healthy off the suspension. Like, they could, VJ Edgecombe is going to be 1st-team All-Rookie this year. It was a great draft pick by Daryl Morey. They could push Boston 6. Well, now Embiid, God bless him, has had an appendectomy. Had an appendectomy surgery, so he's probably gone for the rest of this year. It sucks, again, that this just comes up for him. I went back and forth on this, again, just on home floor, the fact that team chemistry is flawed as it can be in Philadelphia. Sixers fans that I've seen on social media do not like Nick Nurse. They don't like his late-game decision-making. They don't love his rotations. I'm going to go with Philadelphia. Again, I just think the vibes in Orlando are terrible right now. To be honest, if you're going to hold me to it, I think the winner of Charlotte-Miami, and I think it's going to be Charlotte, is going to beat Orlando in Orlando on Friday, and they'll be the 8th seed. So I think the Magic are going to miss the playoffs entirely, to be quite honest with you. So I do have the Sixers win this game. It's probably my favorite of these 4 if I were a bet man, as the saying goes during football season.
We're a betting man.
If I were a bet man of the 4 lines, this is probably my favorite. Philadelphia -1.5. I think Maxey goes for like 35 in this game. I think he has a big time performance. And finally, did not think we'd be here in October, but here we are. That's where the season from hell with injuries from hell will get you. It's my Golden State Warriors. Worst record among play-in teams, and obviously playoff teams, at 37-45. Taking on the Los Angeles Clippers, who go in with pretty good momentum. Start 6-21, you finish 42-40. Pretty good. Kudos to Ty Lue, Kawhi Leonard for staying committed to the process, not giving up. And here the Clippers are. They're in an elimination game. This is an elimination game. But if they win 2 straight, they're in the playoffs, which would be, based on the season started, pretty good for them. So, this is where the Clippers, by the way, in this game are favored -4.5 over the Warriors. So, as I've lamented, since January, it's been the season from hell for the Golden State Warriors. They finished last year as next, I think, behind OKC and Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken, the 2-1 seeds a year ago. They finished with the best record in the NBA outside of those 2 teams down the stretch after the Jimmy Butler trade. They were, in that stretch, the best defense in the NBA. They took out the 2-seed Rockets and got to play the 6-seed Timberwolves. And Steph Curry hurts his hamstring in the second quarter of game 1, doesn't come back, and they get gentlemen's swept by Minnesota. So it's like, that sucks. Missed opportunity. I think based on how their regular season matchups have gone with OKC, I think they would have beaten OKC and then beaten Indiana in the finals. We'll never know had Steph not gotten hurt. But you go into this year, you hear Steph, Jimmy, Draymond, heck, Kerr, who's the ultimate realist. We're talking, and they're like, we feel like we can do something kind of special this year. Well, they got off to a rough start. At one point, they were 13-15. But then they get hot. Then they win 12 of their next 16 games. They're playing good basketball. It's like, okay, it's starting to come together. Maybe if you make a move at the trade deadline, move Kuminga, and Jimmy Butler tears his ACL against the Miami Heat, and that's that. And then a week and a half later, Steph Curry suffers runner's knee and doesn't play until last Sunday. Now you move Kuminga for Kristaps Porzingis, which has turned out to be, I said, a low-risk, high-reward type of prospects for the Warriors. It's turned out to be exactly that. Kristaps Porzingis has played good basketball for the Golden State, and likely will be brought back a year from now, which I'm in favor of. But it has been the season from hell. And Steph looked good in his time coming back. He looked great against Houston last Sunday. Played fine, scored 17 against the Kings on Tuesday. Kind of re-aggravated the knee, hurt his ankle against the Kings on Friday, played limited minutes yesterday, looked solid against Clippers. I think he scored 24, so he looked fine. Kerr said it, and I think Warriors fans are crushing for this. I'm completely team Steve Kerr on this. He's going to be on a minutes restriction, is Steph Curry, as he should be. Let the season from hell come to an end. Give me the Clippers. I think the Clippers are knocking out my Warriors. Wednesday night, 117-110. Listen, do I think Steph's going to play well? Of course I think he's going to play well. Kerr said he's not going to play 40 minutes. He's probably going to play like 38 and a half. But the Clippers, with the Warriors playing their main... Draymond didn't play yesterday, but most of their main guys, the Clippers were mostly in control of that game the whole way yesterday. Now, I know the game meant virtually nothing for both squads, but I think the Clippers win this game. Clippers have actually a solid home court advantage into it, Dome. Better than what they had at Staples, obviously. But season from hell, the Warriors are done. They're done. I'm not going to come up here and lie to you and say, yeah, I think the Warriors are better than the Clippers. Can they win a game? Sure. If you got D'Anthony Melton said it today, you got Steph Curry, you always got a chance. But Porzingis on a minutes restriction and didn't look that good in his first game with Steph. A lot of chemistry they got to work out during the summer and during next season. No Jimmy Butler, no Moses Moody. Steph's not 100%. Like, it's just end our misery. End our misery. Let's go in. It's going to be a weird offseason in Golden State. A lot of decisions to make with Kerr's contract, with who do you bring in to pair with Steph? Is it Kawhi, Bron? Do you give up assets for Giannis? Let the season from hell come to an end. That's all I got to say. So I'll be pulling for the Warriors. It's kind of that weird situation that I found myself at points in last year with the Steelers, where it's Tomlin's got to go. So do I pull against Pittsburgh? Like, I can't bring myself to do that. But I also know if we lose, that means Tomlin has a better chance of not being the coach next year. And eventually that's how it ended up working out. So I'm like, okay, guess it worked. And so for Golden State, there's no prospects of firing the coach, obviously, or any of that sort, but let's get the season over with. It's over. The season was over when Jimmy went down. It was really over when Steph went down and missed 2 months. put us out of our misery. Let's just move into the offseason and see what the heck we do. With that, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live, not on Wednesday, on Thursday. Again, I want to talk. I hesitate to say this because I knew what my pick was going to be. I believe after the Warriors' season-ending loss, I believe they're going to lose Wednesday night, unfortunately, to the Clippers. I'll react to the end of the Warriors season, what they need to do this offseason is going to be a very important one for Golden State, as well as reaction to some of the other playing games, predictions for Fridays. Well, I guess prediction for Friday's games will be on Friday, but mock draft 5.0, playoff strengths and weaknesses, my top 10 players in the NBA as we go into the postseason, which part of the reason I love doing the top 10 before the playoffs is that the list almost always looks different coming out of the playoffs. So very, very excited for all of that. Hope everybody's a great week. Please continue to stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. And speaking of the Steelers, don't bring Aaron back. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.